Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. This is Pieter Franken from AFIN APIX platform, calling in from Tokyo. This is one of the last sessions of the APIX Oxygen conference, and what a session are we going to have here. So today we're going to talk about the emerging API fintech ecosystem and the opportunities it is creating for medium-sized and rural banks to jump ahead and transform branch-based operations into full digital service models. The rewards can be large, not just commercially, but also in terms of the impact on financial inclusion. There are still over 1 billion people in Asia underserved or not reached by existing financial ecosystems. To make an impact, financial service providers need to overcome several hurdles, including lack of digital know-how, challenges selecting the right partners, access to cloud infrastructure, and compliance with evolving regulatory expectations. They also have to help their clients to overcome challenges in the transition to digital finance. Digital literacy, access to infrastructure, and retraining of the workforce. New networks, such as those found on the APIX platform, were designed to make solutions to these many challenges accessible even to the smallest of banks. Today, we're going to bring together chief executives from microfinance organizations and impact investors to discuss the challenges they face and what actors in the new financial architecture needed to help their institutions and many like them to benefit from open finance. Before we go into the questions, I would like to have each of our today's participants briefly introduce themselves, a little bit about themselves, their institution, and where they're from. And I would like to start with Tanya, please.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Tanya Hodges, the EVP of Cantilan Bank. We are a rural bank located in Mindanao, which is in the southernmost island group of the Philippines, where about half of the unbanked towns in the country are found. And we currently serve over 100 underbanked communities with our branch network. And last year, we became the first bank here in the Philippines that got final approval from the regulator to go live on the cloud and put our core banking system in the cloud. And it took us about 2 years to do that. So it was a digital transformation towards the cloud, and that was the first part of our digital transformation. In the year 2020, we embarked on the second and third leg of our digital transformation so that we could add more digital channels to serve our customers. And despite the pandemic, we were able to surmount all with the help of traders and our partners.
Thank you, Tanya. I would like to move to Bakram, if you could introduce yourself and your organization. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Bakhrom, and I work as Director of Business Development in HUMO. This is one of the largest microfinancial institutions in Tajikistan in Central Asia. As HUMO, we strive to become one of the most advanced technological fintech companies in Tajikistan, and HUMO is one of the largest institutions in Tajikistan by terms of credit portfolio, deposit portfolio, and we have huge experience in new products, in innovation development, and in implementation of innovations in Tajikistan, in countries with very poor infrastructure and without technological literacy, financial literacy, and good opportunities to access for internet. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I would like to move to Estelle, please.
Hello, everyone. I'm Estelle Darie-Rousseaux. I work as Executive Director for AMRET. AMRET is one of the leading microfinance institutions in Cambodia, existing for 30 years now. We serve 500,000 clients, mainly micro and small businesses and farmers. And we have also engaged, let's say, 2-3 years ago in a relatively important internal transformation plan, leveraging quite a lot on digital solutions. So I'm very happy to be here and to share experiences with peers. Thank you.
So thank you so much. And last but not least, Shefali, please.
Hi everyone, I'm Shefali Saldana. I'm an investment analyst at Symbiotics. Symbiotics is the leading market access platform focused on impact investments, specifically in microfinance and in other financial services in emerging and frontier markets. So Symbiotics is based, headquartered in Geneva, and we work in 70 countries across the world and have about close to 2.5 billion assets under management. I'm based in Singapore, where we work in about 12 different countries in Asia. And I specifically cover institutions in India, Myanmar, and previously Cambodia and Nepal as well.
Thank you, Shefali. Let's start our discussion, and I would like to start with, what kind of are the challenges here, and small sizes should not really matter, but it does bring all kind of challenges. Not the least, funding, regulatory nodes, know-how, access to infrastructure, and new technology, mobile penetration, competition from disruptors or digital incumbents. Maybe. It would be great if each of you could highlight what are kind of the challenges you have been seeing for small institutions to embrace and adopt a digital transformation. And I would like to start with Tanya, and then we'll go around the table.
Okay, in terms of challenges for rural banks here in the Philippines, we have a total of roughly 400 rural banks, but still there's very little access to financial services. Only 30% of Filipinos have a bank account, and so financial inclusion is still a big challenge. And one of the main reasons for rural banks, being unable to do that is first the uncompetitive business climate in a lot of the places where we operate and where we work, which is exactly where the unbanked live. There's poor infrastructure. This was more true a few years ago than it is now, of course. Just to give you context of how the state of infrastructure was a bit over 10 years ago, Cantilan Bank was still using handheld radios for its form of communication across its branches, and this was just about 10, 11 years ago. And fast forward to today, and we're using cloud technology and API-enabled technology. Again, in terms of the challenges, it's infrastructure. The regulatory environment is not so much of a challenge because that in itself represents an enabling environment. But what did represent a challenge at the beginning was this perception that cloud is inherently riskier than on-premise technologies. And even though the regulatory environment was very welcoming, they issued a circular in 2013 that allowed banks to use cloud technology. The perception of banks was that cloud was, and especially for core banking. So it was a very interesting time where we basically just went directly to the regulator. They were very open about our questions, and they wanted to know what our plans were. And when we told them that we wanted to have a cloud-based core banking system in 2016, they said, "When can you do it? Can you do it next month?" And I said, okay, not that fast, but that's how welcoming they were. So that was in itself something that helped us surmount the challenge at the beginning. But definitely ICT is still an issue here in the Philippines.
Bakram, how does that look in Tajikistan?
Of course, financial literacy is an important challenge for us too, because many challenge in terms of financial literacy. In addition, after the financial crisis in Tajikistan, after bankruptcy of top-tier banks, confidence in the banking sector dropped. The population and residents prefer to use cash for their payments, and it's our biggest challenge in Tajikistan for our bank system, for our financial system. Regulatory and compliance systems, it's not a big challenge for us. But in addition, of course, it is important to note that we are striving for technological transformation. I mean, Tajikistan financial system. And in terms when Tajikistan don't have a good access to internet. It's one more big challenge for our country.
Thank you so much. Estelle, how does it look from your organization?
Here in Cambodia, infrastructure is not an issue at all, but I concur with Bakram on the challenge which relates to who we serve. I mean, basically micro and rural segments are not natural first adopters of digital solutions, so this requires a lot of onboarding efforts and digital literacy. The second main challenge for us, I would say, is the way our operations are organized. Basically, in microfinance, everything is very manual, very decentralized, very field-based. So to assess a loan, we all of us, I mean, actually go to the client's household, rebuild the cash flow, talk to the neighbor. So it means that when you want to digitize, for instance, your loan process, you have to reshuffle it significantly. This is the first challenge. And the second one is that the solution that you can find on the market of the shelf, which are standard banking solutions, never work. So there is a lot of need for customization. So I would say this is an additional challenge, yes.
And Shefali, how does that look from the investor viewpoint? Do you see the same challenges?
Yeah, so I guess I'm going to give a more of a broad perspective based on what we see with all our partners. I think any kind of radical change or digitalization requires a lot of support from the top and a lot of investment. And very often it involves, kind of looking at the organization from the ground up and, seeing how to adjust the organization structure and the processes. And so I think very often, with technology changing all the time, there is
Shefali, I don't think we can hear you. Not sure. Can anybody else hear me?
I can hear you, Pieter.
Okay. So why don't we go to the next question, and then Shefali, if you can keep on checking what's wrong on your end with the studio, then somewhat we're getting okay. So we'll go to the next question, and we'll see how we handle that. So looking at the various sectors outside of finance, technology services can be used as a service on demand. In many cases, banks' clients like SME, consumers, and retailers are also migrating to digital services. How do you adapt to that? And I would like to start with Bakram, please.
Excuse me, Pieter, can you repeat, please?
Yes, I will. So, what I was talking about is that in many sectors outside of finance, we see also like SMEs, consumers, and retailers. They're also digitizing and starting to digitize. And so, how do you adapt to that as a microfinance institution or rural bank?
Okay, Tajikistan, one of the most. When we see our GDP structure, Tajikistan GDP, half part of Tajikistan GDP, it's remittances from Russian Federation, and our very depend of remittances, money transfers from other countries, and it's one of the challenges for the country. And when we talk about SMEs and startups in Tajikistan, we provide some products like mobile wallet. We have a huge, good collaboration with mobile operators, with telecommunications in Tajikistan. For example, we have a joint product with one of the leaders in telecommunication industry in Tajikistan. It's Megaphone Tajikistan company, and we introduce loan product. We use mobile operator metadata for making credit scoring, and one of the problems, it's population in Tajikistan don't have a credit history, and we use history and metadata from mobile operators to make credit scoring to provide small loan. It may be about $20-25 US dollars, but it's good amount to start credit history. When we talk about B2C industry, when we talk about our customers, we provide special credit cards with small amount of loan. It's about $10 to start using banking products, to start using banking cards, and we provide wallets, we provide some mobile apps to use our banking products. Yes, and for us it's very important to digitalize our customers and provide convenient solutions to spend money, to use your money.
Bakram, thank you so much. Over to you, Estelle. I think in Cambodia, the digitalization is also going very rapid, and how does it look there?
Yeah, sure. We have a number of segments of clients who start to be very conversant with, of course, social media, but also wallets or mobile apps, mainly for payments. So it's clearly an opportunity for us. So we basically took that opportunity to diversify our own channel, so both transaction and information channel, but also to partner with other provider of digital services. For instance, we're on the same type of segment, so it's the typical example is integration with wallet. So our clients can move money from bank to wallet and wallet to bank, and then we can use infrastructure of the wallet providers in terms of agent. To give you a bit of sense of what this means, as of now, we have basically 42% of all our transactions which are now out of branch through alternative delivery channels. And this figure is increasing month on month. So it becomes a very big part of our business, and very soon the biggest part actually in terms of transactions.
Thank you, Estelle. Tanya, in the area you're in, there's a lot of, still a lot of poverty, and it's very rural. What about digitization trends in your area?
We've been keeping tabs on these trends for over about 5 years now. So it's steadily changed. The latest statistics that I saw for January 2020, so prior to the pandemic, saw that there are 174 million mobile subscribers in the Philippines, but only 109 million population there. So there are people that have two connections to phones, and most of them now have smartphones. And 97% of these mobile users have used the internet for the first time, and it's always through mobile. So this is, again, a significant shift in our behavior, but the trend has been there for a while. We remain the top, if not the number one user of social media, at least here in Asia, but I think even across the world in terms of number of hours spent on social media. So this is a trend that we've been watching for a while, and when it comes to its relevance to financial services, even in the unbanked and underbanked communities where we operate and where we serve, this is already happening. It's in the rural countryside where you see a lot of these new adopters of technology, and it's the first time that they've been connected to the internet, and it's because of the smartphone that's now cheaper. So how do we adapt to this? Well, innovation for Cantilan Bank has always been our strategic imperative. We used to view it as something that we needed for relevance, for competitiveness, but because of the pandemic, we have to add something. We now need it for survival. So we really understand, we've understood this for a long time, but now it's driven home quite clearly. Without digital, your organization wouldn't stand a chance, at least for the coming years. So how do we adapt to that? We make sure that we have the channels where our customers can actually reach us through digital means. When we moved our for banking to the cloud. This was just last year, January 2019. Our clients didn't really care that we were using cloud because they didn't feel it yet, because they still normally go to the branches, do over-the-counter transactions. But now in 2020, this is where we begin adding ATMs and what do you call this? A mobile banking app. And to us, this is the most critical part of the delivery of our services. If we can get a mobile banking app out soon, this is where we can make such a big difference in serving our communities.
Tanya, thank you. And there's clearly a lot of things happening. And I wanted to see if Shefali, if you've been able to rejoin us.
Yes, I think I have.
Okay, that's wonderful.
Okay,
so we're while you dropped out, we were talking about the impact of digitalization of SMEs, consumers, and also moving to digital services while financial services are trying to do the same. And how do you adapt to that was the question, and I wanted to see how you see that happening as an investor across the region.
Yeah, I mean, I think see a huge opportunity in this for small banks and for small institutions to kind of better cater to their clients, and especially for the financially excluded. I think with more digital data available on clients, you can, and using APIs to access, data in real time, you can kind of, cater products, you can, use kind of machine learning for credit assessment, just like huge potential for product optimization and working with the clients better. A lot of the MFIs, the microfinance institutions that we deal with, still have a very high labor intensive kind of model with, requiring a lot of interaction with clients. And so with digitalization, you can definitely, I don't see that interaction going away completely, but you can definitely facilitate it much better with the use of digitalization. And then, there's huge potential for banks to kind of collaborate with fintechs in the products that they've already offered to actually be much more competitive, because they can be like the one-stop shop for many financial services.
Shefali, thank you so much. So if we look at the, we talked about there's about 1 billion people that are not being served or reached out to in terms of financial services. And if you look across the greater Asia, there's a tremendous amount of capacity building needed to actually bring up all these banks or bring all these people, into one kind of financial service that may or may not be a bank that provides that. Now, if we think about that, and I would like to get each of your views on that. Will global disruptors such as a Revolut or Facebook's Libra be the savior here, or would it be the digital incumbents, the large banks in the countries that are digitizing? Are they going to provide that capacity, or is much more a bottoms-up approach led by local banks or microfinance institutions the way to go? And I would like to start here with Estelle, please.
I think the increased financial inclusion will come from all those approaches. Actually, I mean, the disruptors are very useful because they are pushing traditional players to adapt quickly. But I think we should not underestimate that banks or microfinance institutions, which have been in their market for decades, they know extremely well their clients. I mean, and this is key. This is very rich, and then they have built trust. So payment is a bit a different story, but when it comes to loans and savings, trust is really important. And Shefali was mentioning that the human touch will never go away. And I totally agree. To give you a very concrete example, for us, we launched a few years ago a very labor-intensive doorstep saving collection service. So we basically have staff going to the market, and they collect like a few dollars from the women selling on the markets. And we started to automate this process to secure the service. So we provided tablets to the staff, and with an online integration with our CBS, as soon as the client gives the money to the staff, his account is credited and he receives an instant SMS. So this helped building trust. And then we accumulated data. So then we launched a nano loan for those clients. And then we unlocked another need, right, which was the need for funds for family emergencies or very small working capital. And now we are at the step where we have these 20,000 women, and we try to onboard them on a self-service mobile application so that they can send money home to the provinces without bringing cash to the agent. So it's a long journey of onboarding our clients, but in this journey, technology is of course an enabler, but the human touch is very critical. So I think it's a mix.
Okay, so Estelle says it's a mix. Shefali, do you agree, or do you have a different view on this?
You are mute.
I think for me, I see a key player in this is the regulators, and having a regulatory environment that supports financial inclusion cannot be is key. And like in India, we've seen that there's been a big push for everyone to open bank accounts, but it's an ongoing challenge that those bank accounts aren't used, and so it just the regulator plays a big role. But I completely echo what Estelle says, where we've seen in most of the markets that we work in, the dominant players are the microfinance banks and are the local banks that are focusing on financial inclusion. And again, they have the trust, they know the clients, and I think with digitalization they can just cater to them better. So I do see the local banks with digitalization and a more supportive environment seems like the way forward.
Thank you. And Tanya, how does it look on the ground? The capacity, where do you see the capacity coming from? Will it be a mix? Will it be one of these?
I would echo Estelle and Shefali in the sense that, again, all the collaboration from all stakeholders, so I really view them, whether we're small or they're large, or whether it's the regulator, we're all stakeholders in the financial inclusion space. But then again, we all have different weaknesses and strengths. For our case in rural banks, just like what Estelle said, trust is key. So we are dealing with customers who are previously unbanked individuals, and the amount of trust that you had to build to get them to bank with you, that took a lot of time, that took a lot of effort on the part of the bank, and it's exactly what they needed at the beginning, a lot of hand-holding. So for the bank, we have a strategy where we put together high tech and high touch. We do not see ourselves going completely digital where there's no high touch activities. And the reason for this is because of our market. The Filipino market is a very emotional one. Even with financial transactions, they prefer that they deal with a person. But of course, it's now different because of the pandemic. So I want to see how that emerges. But I still feel that there is a human touch that's necessary, as Shefali was saying. Just share with you a small anecdote. When in 2006 we were one of the pioneers in using GCash, which was the first mobile banking solution for the Philippines, where we could use the e-wallet there to pay loan repayments, to do deposits. We had a lot of our clients using that, a lot of our microfinance clients. And I did a focus group discussion with them about 4 years after they onboarded, and I asked them, how come I see that you guys are still preferring to come to the branch to interact with the bank? Why can't you just do that at your place? And they said, well, we want to come here, because I asked them if it was something to do with convenience. You can just stay at home, right, and do that in the phone. And they said, well, who asked you who told you that we needed convenience, or we asked for convenience? We actually want to come to the town to go to the bank so that we can see the other friends or other suppliers and other business owners. So that to me speaks to the type of relationship that they want to keep with a financial service provider. And I think that's still the advantage of rural banks like us who are at the front lines of financial inclusion.
So social aspects play a very important role. And Bakram, in Tajikistan, the capacity building for going digital, how do you see that happen?
Okay, we have at least several examples from Tajikistan. Large companies like Revolut or TransferWise are targeting the mass user on mass market. And when we talk about small countries like Tajikistan, different approaches needed. Therefore, the level of education and financial digital literacy is very different. And the big players, like a TransferWise, will have to adapt the products, which can be difficult at times. For example, we launched an application for money transfers from Russia to Tajikistan. It is a simpler, it is a more convenient, and we don't have a huge features or killer features. And this app focused only on remittances, and we focused on cultural and country specificities when we launch this product. And it's one of the examples of digitalization when we use cultural background to provide digital tools to use usual operations like send money from Russia to family in Tajikistan, and when we providing better currency rate, currency exchange rate, we provide cashbacks for money transfers with digital tools, and it's one of the solutions, one of the ways to improve digital literacy and to digitalize our operations. Second example, next example in Tajikistan, some banks and MFIs offer various products on credit. It's small loans. For example, you can buy clothes in a store using a mobile app and use your virtual card. And it's one of the ways to improve literacy. It's one of the ways to digitalize our customers, because you have a good tool, you have a good app to buy something in a store, and you can use a mobile app to buy it, and it's one of the ways. Yeah.
Bakram, thank you so much. Estelle, any views on that?
I already share views on this question, Pieter. I think.
Sorry. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So it is Friday, and you did. So I would like to move to the next question. I was also a little bit confused here. So if we think about the incumbent banks and the larger financial institutions in many countries in Asia, they have been trying to go digital as well. And we have been seeing is that it has been challenging for those larger banks, quite expensive, and for some even elusive to get to that point. So there's a lot of technical challenges when you want to go digital, not just not just switching on the app or whatever. There's legacy systems, regulatory reporting, interfaces to exchanges, etc. So how do you see the road to going digital and into the cloud? What are the obstacles and what are the rewards? Is going digital still an option, or is it a necessity to survive? And I'd like to start with Shefali here, and get your views more kind of across the region on this.
Yeah, sure. No, I think it's a necessity now, going digital. I'll start with the rewards. I mean, I think what we see with most of our partners, what differentiates, like we've talked about before, is like what differentiates the small bank from the larger bank is the service. And if you can, really leverage all that the cloud and digitalization has to offer to get a better service and to be more cost effective, then the advantages can be huge in terms of, reaching those hard to reach clients. And I think the other key advantage is that, with all the products that all these cloud services offer, there's just no need for small banks to kind of reinvent the wheel and try and create all of this themselves. If it's all out there already, if those products are there. And so it can be much more kind of, cost effective, quicker. I mean, it makes the life of the developer much, much easier. So those are like key advantages. In terms of like the hurdles, I think, in terms of digitalization, it's definitely, the first step is obviously, a lot of, there's a cost involved, there's an upfront investment. And there's also just, getting people to, out of that old way of doing business, and getting people on board. With the cloud, I think, a lot of times it's just, there's a big hurdle is absence of clear regulations. I think we definitely need kind of like strong and clear regulations that protect our clients' data and also protect the institutions that are storing their data offsite. So that can be one of the hurdles for sure.
Thank you. Tanya, you already talked a little bit about some of the obstacles, and you are going digital with your bank. What are the rewards actually for your bank? What makes you excited about this?
Okay, when it comes to cloud, one of the things that we focused on was to better certain risks better. While we cannot eliminate these risks, we can manage with cloud. Geohazard risks. The place where we operate, this is one of the most geohazardous places. Where we always have typhoons, 25 typhoons a year. We have quakes, and this is on a regular basis. Purely, one of the things that we can do quickly, that we can shift the way we can do our risk management. And at the same time, it addresses certain operational risks where we can now have, through cloud technology, you can have increased availability, and redundancy, and of course, business continuity and compliance to disaster recovery requirements. So these are some of the benefits that we were looking at. But when it comes to market competitiveness, that in itself also represents a different category of benefits. And to us, it mostly meant we wanted to achieve scale, legacy system, the center could cope with, and again, scale. These are big capital investments, and here in the Philippines, I'm sure just as in other banking spaces, we needed two of everything. If you have one data center, that's not enough. You need at least two, and that was simply impossible for us if we wanted to grow. We already reached the limit in terms of the number of branches that we could serve with this data center with a certain number of servers. And so it was absolutely imperative for us to move towards the cloud. And that's one. So we wanted to achieve scale. But secondly, I'll leave it at this, we wanted the ability to have API-enabled multi-channel or omni-channel capabilities. And this was just not possible with our core legacy system. And I think this is one of the main benefits that cloud provides us, and I really look forward to what we can do with it starting this year.
That's super actually to hear. Bakram, in Tajikistan, what kind of the challenges and the rewards of going digital?
Okay, the first and the main obstacle is access to the internet. If you know, Tajikistan takes one of the last places in terms of internet speed, and it's very expensive for ordinary people. In addition, 93% of Tajikistan is mountains, and infrastructure problem very important for us. Also, as I say, the cost of the internet is very expensive. The internet is expensive not only for ordinary users, for population, but even for business. This is a very big problem for Tajikistan. We use on premises cloud technologies. Maybe it's more like about local cloud technologies, but this is still not enough. We provide, for example, at HUMO, we provide an opportunity for some businesses to use our processing, use our core banking system as a cloud service. For example, it's a mobile operator who use our processing and our compliance, our experience to provide mobile wallet for their customers. It's like some kind of local cloud services, but it's not enough. And main challenge for Tajikistan, it's access to the internet.
Isn't it? I think you're bringing up a very valid point. A lot of people, when they talk about financial inclusion, they assume everybody is walking around with iPhones with 5G accessibility, and I think there is still a long stretch for many parts of the world to get there. And digital services will trail that. Estelle, how does that look for Cambodia, and how do you see that?
I think as far as the challenges or the obstacles are concerned, we already mentioned the way we are organized, which are more internal challenges to overcome. I think Shefali mentioned the human resources, which is of course important, and the regulatory framework. For the rest, it's mainly around reward, and I share what Tanya said. For us, our digital roadmap is organized around very few, I would say 3 KPIs, basically cost to income decrease, and this is process automation. This also enables us to have better operational risk. Then decrease in our cost of risk on the credit side, and this is where scoring, etc., data analytics come into place. And then very importantly for us is to generate activity on CASA accounts, because we are competing in Cambodia with much larger banks who have access to much cheaper deposit or other source of funds. And the only way for us to continue to compete and to offer loans at reasonable price is actually to decrease our cost of funds. So this is only achievable if we have a complete omni-channel approach. So I think we are in a very similar situation than Tanya in the Philippines. Yeah.
Thank you so much. The time is flying, and we're almost reaching the end of our session. And I know there are so many other things I would have loved to ask, and there's so much around this topic. I wanted to end, of course, with a question around COVID, because we had not done that yet. But I think COVID has played an important role, and we also have been seeing this from the APIX side. Over the last 10 months, we have seen a change in tone. I would say a year ago at the Singapore FinTech Festival, going digital was still something of yes, nice to do, but we have other priorities. I think COVID has made a huge change in that. When we talk to smaller banks, what we're hearing is that how can you help us to go digital, and how can I press a button, and how can we launch this now? And so I think it also has redefined many of our assumptions and things we took for granted in our lives, not just in Asia, but around the world. So what I would like to ask each of you is how has COVID, has it redefined your thinking, or how has it redefined your thinking around digital? And do you see yourself coming out stronger after the crisis is over? And what are kind of the lessons learned? And I would like to start with Tanya.
Great question, Pieter. For Cantilan Bank, it really forced us to move faster than we had anticipated. as quickly as possible in order, again, to achieve competitiveness, but now also survival. So it accelerated this need to go digital because we knew that the market was going to start including the underbanked and underserved communities. And we know that moving towards the new normal requires innovation and partnerships. And in this, on this note, I really want to make sure that this is the biggest lesson for Cantilan Bank. Even at the beginning of our digital transformation journey towards the cloud, we couldn't have done it without partners. So in this case, we needed the speed at which we could move towards new technologies, and the only way we could do that in this year was to partner with one, APIX in particular. So it allowed us to reach out towards a global set of resources, having a platform that we could reach out to and look for vendors. And in the past, when we were doing our move towards cloud, it basically took us 3 years because the first part was the most difficult one, where we needed to navigate across regulations, needed to look for vendors, you needed to do RFPs, and that was so difficult and it took so long. And again, the benefit that we wanted to gain from a platform like APIX was, how quickly we can do this, how can we shorten this? So our move towards the cloud took us about 2 years. Our move towards API integration to our ATMs this year in the middle of a pandemic took us 6 months. Now we're going to be onboarding together with our partner Geniusto. We're going to be onboarding onto our omni-channel platform, and it took us 2 months. So again, this is something that I look forward to, that we'll have the ability together with our partners to innovate and scale up quite quickly.
That is fantastic. I think that the timelines you're talking about are really very different from what we saw, before we had before we had these platforms around, and many, the word API came up a lot today, and I think that is kind of it's becoming the language of how to go digital faster. Bakram, you mentioned that there's still a lot of challenges in terms of infrastructure in Tajikistan. Is COVID in one way or another helping to accelerate that pace?
For us and for Tajikistan, COVID was a challenge, and as I said earlier, the country is highly dependent on remittances. It's money transfers from Russia, but we for our part gave the opportunity to restructure loans. We began to actively introduce various methods of mobile banking. For example, our regulator, National Bank of Tajikistan, actively implement regulatory basis for distance identifications methodologies. For example, we provide mobile banking identification from mobile app. You don't need to go to our office or something like this for mobile identification. And we introduce in Tajikistan market special top-up kiosks. We actively promoting top-up kiosks to use cashless solutions for example, for loan repayment or for deposit repayment, and tools like this. And it's not only about it's not about only HUMO, but I mean all Tajikistan financial structure, all banks very actively striving to provide mobile banking, to provide digital tools in terms of COVID challenge in Tajikistan. And it's one of the main ways to promote digitalization and to promote mobile banking in Tajikistan. Yeah.
Bakram, thank you for that. I think there's a lot of opportunities as there are challenges. Estelle, in Cambodia, is that I think the story is going to be a little bit different in terms of digital. But what did COVID help to speed up things, or how do you see it?
Yeah, COVID confirmed the need that to accelerate on the digital roadmap, and that it also helped to reprioritize. For instance, I can give a very short example. We had very quickly to offer a payment moratorium to our clients, right? And then to closely follow them up monthly, and to centralize this reporting, because we wanted to assess what would be the expectation in terms of repayment and business evolution after the moratorium. So for instance, in our digital roadmap, we had a priority on loan origination for the mobile app that field officers are using on the field, and we switched this priority towards client monitoring functionalities, because with COVID this became critical, while the loan origination is of course less critical. We disburse less loans, etc., than pre-COVID situation. So it's interesting because it's also in that type of crisis where you test the agility of your digital strategy, because you have to be very agile, and what you decide, of course, a year before what is going to be your roadmap, you have to be able to change it very quickly. And what Tanya said, you have to partner very quickly with different type of solutions, and then to be able to react to the situation. So this was a very concrete example for us, actually.
That's very good to hear. And as I mentioned earlier, we have seen a lot of that kind of different focus in discussions we're seeing coming, hopefully coming out of COVID. Shefali, if you look at it from the investor angle, do you see that is COVID bringing oxygen to digital and to the speed of digitalization?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think for us, because we saw many different institutions, and those that had, already kind of moved to the cloud, were able to adapt to, working from home. Almost all our institutions had to offer loan moratoriums, and so adjusting the systems became much easier. I think just basically any change becomes much easier if you're on the cloud. So there's definitely been a big push, and we saw that those institutions that weren't already quite digital have seen the urgency in doing that for sure. Yeah.
Thank you. And I would say that if we started this session talking about size doesn't matter, I think we found out that there's still a lot of challenges, not just around size, around infrastructure, around regulations, around capabilities, but also around mindset and being an early adapter, accessibility to digital or the cloud, etc. I think it's going to be super interesting to see where all of you will be a few years from now. And I would like to thank all of you for joining us today and giving some final oxygen to the long week of Singapore FinTech Festival and APIX Oxygen. Thank you so much, and I hope to see you soon, hopefully face to face. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Thank you, Pieter.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.